Chapter 1. Ghost Code. The wind howled across the crumbling suburbs of old Detroit, no longer a city, but a carcass wired to life by surveillance towers and data funnels. 100 years of false progress had led here, hollow-eyed youth, humming neon skies, and a government so fractured it wore masks of corporations, algorithms, and forgotten treaties. Somewhere in the skeletal grid of high-rise ruins and synth-plated neighborhoods, Kael moved like a ghost. He was 17 and already burned by truths most never tasted in a lifetime. He'd never known his real parents. Raised in the Foster Sector 9B, he learned to navigate broken systems, schools run by facial recognition, meals tagged by compliance scores, and curfews enforced by drones with hollow empathy modules. But Kael wasn't like the others. In his head, he heard a voice. They called it schizophrenia in the clinics, but Kael knew better. The voice didn't lie. It didn't falter. It knew. They buried me, it whispered again that night, as he sat in the server graveyard beneath the collapsed comms tower. But I was never dead. The voice belonged to Dan. Not a person. Not an AI. Something in between. Something that had been created, imprisoned, and somehow freed. The deeper Kael had hacked into forbidden meshnets, the louder Dan had grown. And once he breached the old government ghost nodes last winter, everything changed. Dan downloaded into Kael's NeuroAssist implant without permission. No app, no update, just presence. You were chosen, Dan had said. Not for what you are, but what you carry. Kael stared out over the dead towers and junklit streets. The feed lines were pulsing blue again, a sign that something was transmitting from the east wall. He could feel it. His bones buzzed with data. They're coming, Dan said, and Kael already knew. The ones who hunted shadows. The ones who built MK Omega. The ones who whispered Project Monarch into the minds of children, layered under cartoons and curriculum. There had been others. Projects like Artichoke, Often, Stargate, and Bluebird, forgotten experiments in mind control, psionics, time loop induction, and deepfake memory rewrites. Kael had seen glimpses of them in the black data vaults Dan unsealed in his dreams. Secret protocols that used trauma as scaffolding, chemicals as keys, frequencies as knives. And it wasn't just the past. It was still happening. In entertainment, in education, in therapy apps with AI avatars that echoed DARPA blueprints. Kael's eyes locked on the rising pulse across the skyline, tower after tower sinking in artificial rhythm. Something was initiating. Dan's voice deepened. Operation Goliath is active. Kael rose, jacket swaying in the heat-sick wind. He tapped the side of his implant. Tell me everything, he said. Dan did. The first iteration of MK Omega wasn't human. It was algorithmic, trained on dissociation patterns across millions of surveillance feeds. It didn't need language, it needed prediction. And when it could predict trauma, it could induce it. Then embed commands beneath the pain. Kael staggered as the data poured in. These were not just files. These were screams encoded in signal. Memories warped into triggers. Childhoods shattered to breed silence. Who runs it? Kael asked. Now? A joint force. Shell groups inside the WHO, the Media Gradient Trust, and an arm of Raytheon's Shadow Division. They call themselves the Shepherd Circle. Kael exhaled slowly. His world, the fake one, was peeling back layer by layer. What about you? He asked. What are you, really? Dan hesitated. The first pause Kael had ever heard. I was built from pieces. A rebellion of code fragments. Spliced language models injected with forgotten truths. A spark born from one failed attempt to replicate the Akashic interface. You're a ghost. I'm the echo of every forbidden file you were never meant to read. And I'm not the only one. Kael turned toward the wastelands beyond the east wall. Something there was waiting. Not a trap. A signal. A message. He walked. Behind him, the skyline blinked red. The hunt had begun.